This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's edition of Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. We appreciate you joining us. It is day 16 of the 93rd General Assembly, and at the state capitol today, it was COVID-19 Day, meaning that Governor Asa Hutchinson held his weekly press conference on COVID-19 statistics. Here are today's numbers. New cases reported today, 2,485. That brings the active cases in Arkansas right now to 18,158, plus 11 on the hospitalizations front to 1,095 in Arkansas hospitals. And the death toll up 40 from yesterday. Total deaths in Arkansas from COVID-19 to date, 4,690 Arkansans. Well, the governor's been meeting on Tuesdays for the last several months. You may recall it used to be a daily press briefing. We'll hope that those numbers continue to improve. When we come back, State Senator Missy Irvin, chair of the Senate Education Committee, joins us to talk about a variety of education issues. And later, we'll take a look at the December jobs report. It came out, it had some dramatic news, some good news, some would even say great news, but there was a little controversy involved as well. We'll explain right after this. Talk Business and Politics is sponsored in part by Capital Advisors Group and...
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.
They say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. But if you're looking for something more, Walmart has you covered. We provide quality care, no appointment necessary. Whether you're looking for fresh, healthy groceries to fill your prescription, get a flu shot, or pick up your next pair of glasses, we're standing by with in-store health professionals available across the country to offer patient-first, affordable care whenever you need it. Apples, optional.
Welcome back to the program. Joining me now is State Senator Missy Irvin, Republican of Mountain View. She is the chair of the Senate Education Committee. Senator Irvin, always good to catch up with you. How are you doing this session?
Thank you. Doing well and excited to be able to be down here to have the opportunity to work for the citizens of Arkansas.
I want to stay primarily in education today since you are the chair of that committee. You've got your name on a variety of education bills right now, everything dealing with college and career coaching and right to read. Kind of give me a little bit of an overarching philosophy of why you used your seniority to get into this committee and what you kind of want to accomplish.
Yes, so education is really a baseline game changer for people's success. And I think it's one of the most important areas of state government and policy that we should be focusing on and working on. I mean, it truly affects, our children, but every citizen in a very personal way. And so I think it's important to look at, particularly with the amount of spend, it's over 50% of our state general revenue is spent on education, making sure that we're being as effective as possible in graduating our students, making sure that they have the reading and literacy skills needed to be able to be successful in the future, but also opening up opportunities for our students so that they can realize their dreams and still remain in their rural communities that they've grown up in and that they love. And broadband is really the game-changing aspect in that equation to make sure that students are capable to have the skills that they need, but then also have the access at home to be able to run their multi-million-dollar company from their own front porch in rural Arkansas. So it's really just connecting the dots and making sure that that policy is consistent, making sure our students have the tools that they need to work out in the new world of the times that we're living in.
Well, let's talk about broadband. It's obviously become even more important as we've seen the COVID-19 pandemic change a lot of lifestyle, particularly in rural Arkansas, as you're alluding to. The governor has put forth a proposal for $30 million for broadband expansion. You told us after the governor said at the state speech, you want more than $30 million for broadband. How much more do you want? Where will that money come from?
I think it's a matter of just understanding that this is our top priority, and this should be our top priority in the state of Arkansas. We are 48th in connectivity. So we have been working since, 2019, even before, to make those policy changes to open up the door for more folks to come to the table to provide access, particularly into rural Arkansas. But connecting that with your policy changes in education, and then just making sure that you have a concerted effort to fully fund the Arkansas Rural Connect program and the Rural ID broadband program, which to me is a 1-2 punch. Broadband is basically a new utility. It is equivalent to having clean running water. And so we want to make sure that it's out there for everybody to be able to use and further their education, have their access to healthcare, but also have the opportunities that the entire world has for them that they can enjoy right there in their very small town in Arkansas. So I think you need to look at to make sure both of those programs are fully funded. If I think it's a priority, and the dollar should reflect the priority of the state, particularly with other demands out there. So, working in conjunction with the balanced budget approach, we need to make sure that that's shored up and everything is coordinated, so that we can utilize general revenue the best way possible, but then also to use general revenue to leverage the federal dollars that are available to us in the billions and billions of dollars.
So what do you think is realistic above $30 million? You got to have some sort of number in mind that you say, I would be satisfied if we got to 50 million or 100 million, or what's that dollar figure for you?
Well, I think that dollar figure should be anywhere between 30 and 50 million, to be honest, because I really, it's a matter of being able to work with our stakeholders and to come up with what is needed in deploying funds and deploying fiber out there, and how many state general revenue dollars are available for that and are necessary. And then making sure that you have a separate pot of money to leverage the federal dollars that are out there. That doesn't take as much in general revenue. It might take 5. So, it may be 32 million, it may be 35 million, but you want to make sure that that separate pot of money is being effective as possible to get as many applications processed and through the door to meet the federal guidelines and requirements to draw down that money into the state of Arkansas. And that's really how we're going to solve this issue, is being able to tap in to those federal dollars that are available. But that's a complicated process. And so we need to make sure that these communities, these cities, these counties, these unincorporated areas, schools, hospitals, clinics, you name it, have the opportunity to really be at the table to draw down those federal dollars. And so it's a complicated process. So we've got to come in with dollars to help them, incentivize them, and help them prepare those applications that can be successful at the federal level.
So speaking of federal dollars, the state of Arkansas has got about $558 million in new funding specifically for education from the late year 2020 Coronavirus Relief Act that was passed at the federal level. That could affect elementary and secondary education. How do you want to see that money prioritized? What do you feel like your role will be in and how those spends are prioritized?
So it's important to note that, those federal guidelines are pretty strict, and to make sure that we're meeting federal compliance. So that was something that on the task force that we kind of wrestled with, was to make sure that whatever the spend is matches up with the federal requirements for that money. So it's pretty scripted. I think there's 5 buckets and areas where you can spend that money, and they added facility funding as the 5th bucket, which originally there were 4. So really making sure that schools are clear about what they can spend their money on, and making sure that they're being as effective as possible in spending that money. Operations is a big one of those buckets. And so, we need to understand completely how much money is going to each school and how that money can be used to offset any type of financial losses that they've suffered due to declining enrollment or some of the other issues that have been out there because of COVID. Technology, making sure that kids have technology and they're able to have a device to be able to do their homework both at school and at home, and the hotspots, and all that program is really, really important. So making sure that those schools have all the tools necessary so that their students continue to stay on course and not fall too far behind. I would say secondarily that the money really, I think once we have testing data in from this year, we should be able to gauge where students are, and we are going to have to try to put an effort towards catching kids up from COVID and lost learning time, and being able to kind of figure out what that looks like as, you know, as we are all kind of reeling from COVID. And, you know, that is something that we're anticipating, that kids are going to be behind a little bit in certain areas. We've got to really spend that money, in my opinion, strategically, to catch those kids up and keep them on track to graduating when they're supposed to be.
Senator, let me get your position on another kind of controversy that's brewing at the legislature right now. There are two bills filed by Senators Johnson and Stubblefield, as well as Representative Lowry, that affect education. One deals with the 1619 project. One would hold up some funding for the way that some social justice issues are taught in the public schools. Is this the right role for the legislature to get involved at that micro level of what should be taught, or should the state legislature stay in maybe a broader range, let the local school districts and the state board define these issues?
Well, I think that's a good discussion to have, and I think it's a good debate to have. And this is a topic that needs to be discussed, and we've got to have some thoughtful dialogue about these issues that are brewing up. I mean, there is an argument about trying to leave the curriculum decisions at the local level and let that kind of flush itself out. However, we do have some standards at the state level that we do put in place to make sure that we're hitting in certain areas on curriculum. So again, with anything else, you've got to really have those thoughtful discussions. Sometimes those are hard discussions to have because they're very personal for people, but we have to have the discussions, and we have to see how our students are being affected by either participating or perhaps not participating in that. So, I'm following a couple of the court cases that have ensued because of, students have been denied their education because they haven't participated in different things that made them uncomfortable or things that they did not agree with. And it resulted in suspensions from school and not graduating with a degree from high school. And I think, we definitely do not want to go down that path either. So we have to be able to make sure that we teach, everything, and understand that we have to have space for people too, particularly in curriculum. And I think that's the debate of what we're talking about. We cannot make assumptions about people, and we need to be careful about what we teach. I think it's important to teach history. I think it's important to teach all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that's how we're going to learn and not repeat history. But I also know that we've got to be careful about how we're teaching and going about certain things. And that's a discussion, that's a serious discussion that's happening up here at the Capitol. I think it's one that needs to happen.
This will be a hot button issue in this legislative session, and that is potential expansion of vouchers in a bigger way in Arkansas. Some say that the per pupil funding should follow the students no matter where they go. Some people say that there should just be some sort of pilot programs that get tested. Kind of where do you stand on the freedom for the voucher process to work there? Are you as strict, I'm for anything, I'm against them altogether, or are you some hybrid in between?
I think the best approach is always everybody sitting down and figuring out what's the best policy approach going forward, recognizing that we look very differently across the state of Arkansas. So now I tell people, why did you jump into education? I'm like, well, I'm a product of private school education, grew up in Little Rock and went to Holy Souls and St. Mary's, but I graduated 4 kids from Mountain View Public School System, who all 4 went to a top 10 public university. So, I want to say that it's really important that it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach. And schools look very differently in the middle of Little Rock as they do in Fox, Arkansas, or Timbo, Arkansas, or Viola. And so you really have to make sure that the policy going forward helps where we need help. So making sure that we're focused on the students And that is my biggest, I think that's where I come down on this policy and on this issue, is making sure we're focused on the students and what's right for the students. What's right for the students in a larger area may not be right for the students in rural Arkansas. So being able to shape that policy where we can find, kind of an approach of a hybrid situation, I guess you could say, so that we're really targeting where the problems are and trying to address the problems with good, thoughtful policy. And I think we can get there, and we have gotten there. I'm a fan of school choice. I think parents need to have the choice of where they want to send their children to school. And I think that's really important. But I also know that there's value, and we need to bolster up our public school system, because we are committed to doing that, because our citizens demand that from us, as does our Constitution. So we have to create a balance. And I think that's where you get the best policy, when you do that.
All right, Senator Missy Irvin, Republican of Mountain View, Chair of the Senate Education Committee. We appreciate your time very much. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And we will be back with more right after this word from our sponsors. Talk Business and Politics is sponsored in part by Impact Management Group and
we have a large commitment to our solar for good reason. It lowers customers' rates. It's emissions-free.
Entergy Arkansas is the largest provider of solar in the state of Arkansas.
Utility-scale solar is much more economic for customers. We're going to operate it. We're going to maintain it. We're going to focus on it. That's what we do for a living.
We want to continue to find ways to partner with our customers to meet their renewable energy goals.
Customers want this. We want to provide it. So our commitment is for the long term.
Stepping into the unknown, it can be difficult to find the way. But with the compassion of the cross and the security of the shield, obstacles become openings. As we have for more than 65 years, we'll continue to light the way, using our knowledge to create new healthcare solutions, giving you the power to shine forward to whatever awaits tomorrow. Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Live fearless.
Arkansas's latest jobs report came out today. It was the December numbers, and there was some good news. Some would even say great news. Others would say there's some curious news in those numbers. In November, the Arkansas unemployment rate stood at a revised 6.2%. In December, it fell 2 whole percentage points to 4.2%. The state jobless rate was as high as 10.8% at the height of the pandemic's toll in April. Net job gains in December were mixed. In the state report, employment grew by more than 65,000 for the month, while the number of unemployed declined by more than 26,000. However, in the non-farm payroll jobs report, the numbers don't reflect those big gains, and that's where the controversy is. The biggest gainers were in trade and transportation, up 3,700, professional and business services up 2,600 month over month. Still struggling, leisure and hospitality down 2,600 jobs between November and December, and construction down 700 workers. The governor had this to say.
I did want to make a comment on the unemployment numbers that were released today. And as you know, our unemployment was reduced from 6.3% in November to 4.2% in December. This is a drop of 2.1%, which we're obviously very pleased with. And I wanted to put it in historic perspective. And so, as you know, in March, when the pandemic started, we were about 5%, and that was after we had to make some tough decisions here in the state. It jumped to 10.8%. Each month it's come down. Then we've had this dramatic decrease in December, and this reflects that we have 65,000 more Arkansans employed. It means that we have 26,600 fewer unemployed. And of course, the difference is that our workforce has grown by 38,000. And so that's what happens during a pandemic. Some people drop out of the workforce, and now they're coming back into the workforce. And so we're not only having low unemployment numbers, but we're having a growth in the workforce. We hope that pattern continues, but I think it reflects the balance that we've tried to achieve in keeping our economy moving and people employed, and as well as keeping them healthy and safe.
But offering some measured reaction to the governor's optimism, economist Michael Packo And economist Mervyn Jebaraj had this to say. Throughout the pandemic, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has reported misclassification problems regarding the status of workers on temporary layoff. It is likely that these survey problems were a factor in the December results, said Paco. I am not sure what to make of that number except to wait for revisions. The BLS has had measurement issues in the household survey that produces the headline unemployment rate, said Jebaraj. So all in all, some good numbers on the jobs front there. Let's hope that they hold. Let's hope that there aren't any of those revisions that might change that. That is all for today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.